some of the parties in South Africa, the MK party of Jacob Zuma, has been accusing Ukraine of supporting terrorists in Africa because of what happened in Mali. So, do you have any reaction to that?
I know about that. Look, first of all, let's start with history. The history of Ukraine. Actually, Ukraine was always on the side of those who fought against colonialism, right? So it was during the time of, even when Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, Ukrainian Republic had a special place in the United Nations. And it was, so we were a member of the United Nations even under the Soviet Union. This was exception, which was given to Ukraine and Belarus. Why? Because of the contribution of these two republics to the victory in World War II. Okay, so, and at that time, Kyiv, Ukraine actually was part of the UN Special Committee on Apartheid, not USSR and not Russia. Russia wasn't member of this committee of the United Nations at that time, but Ukraine. So, and we were deputy, our representative was deputy chief of this committee. So Ukraine actually helped to create many, many resolutions against colonialism and apartheid. Many people from ANC, they not only studied in Ukraine, but they were also trained in military camps in Ukraine. Again, at that time, Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, but, formally it was independent republic, formal. So we supported Africa for many, many years. And then when the countries of Africa received independence, a lot of Ukrainian engineers, workers, specialists worked in African countries. Now, an interesting thing about South Africa, then when South Africa received independence and not independence, but when South Africa elected freely its president in 1994, Ukraine sent observers from Ukraine. So we were part of the mission of the United Nations mission, which testified, that elections are free and fair. During recent decades, Ukrainians participated in many, many peacekeeping missions in Africa, in many missions. Okay, again, United Nations missions. Now, so actually, Ukraine continued to support Africa in different ways. Now, if we are talking specifically about, so why it's important to understand? Because, for quite a lot of years, position of ANC was Moscow always supported us. It wasn't Moscow. It was the Soviet Union. Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, and Ukraine supported as well. Okay? So, that's why, the South Africa, when the war in Ukraine started, they tried to stick to neutral position, which in some cases was beneficial for Russia. Now the situation is changing somehow, I think, and the representative of South Africa, they participated in all the working groups during Global Peace Summit, which is good. So South Africa participated. Unfortunately, South Africa abstained on the communique. But let's continue this work. Let's continue these ties in order for South Africans better to understand Ukraine, and for us better to understand South Africa. We hope also with that the new coalition will maybe change its approach. Why? Because we know the Democratic Alliance was traditionally supported Ukrainian fight for independence and against colonialism. Okay, this is a very long, introduction, but I need to say it in order for South Africans to understand the context. What's going on right now? Right now, it's not Ukraine which destabilizes Africa. It's basically Russia and Wagner mercenaries, which are destabilizing Africa. Okay, this is well known. There are many publications. There's a lot of evidences in many countries of Africa, including in Mali, for example. So what happened in Mali? I think that there's not much information about that, but there was some information that Ukraine provided some military
Intelligence
information to the rebels, which are to Tuaregs, which are fighting not only Mali, but first of all, Wagner groups. Okay? And we know that the most of those who were killed were Wagner groups. So the group which is destabilizing Africa and plays into the hands of Russia. Unfortunately, also, some regular soldiers of Mali army also died. And therefore, there was a reaction from government of Mali. Well, but let's be frank. What we have now in Mali, it's a military government in the same way as Burkina Faso, Niger. These three countries declared confederation, so they are not democratic countries. They are under military government, and they have now pro-Russian stance. So I think it would be simplification to say that we are supporting Ukraine-supported terrorists. Vice versa. I think that Wagner Group is a clear example of terrorism at the state level. However, this episode is very, very contradictory. But Ukraine also supported in Sudan. Ukraine supported the central government of Sudan. And this is totally fine with international law, right? So I think that definitely Ukraine doesn't stick to terrorism at all. This is not our policy. This is not our policy. Vice versa. Russia supports terrorism in different forms, in many, many regions of the world, and also by using these Wagner groups. So this response is long because the situation is not easy. You need to take different things into account. And what was said by Mr. Zuma, I think this is also both part of some internal campaign. He needs to increase his weight, the role of his party, because the party basically lost elections. So I think, he needs to have some visibility. And yes, he's making pro-Russian statements from time to time. I hope that, actually, the position of South African government, the new South African government, is much more pragmatic, and I hope this pragmatism will continue.
Professor Haran, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much again.